welcome. I would love to welcome to the show today Meaghan O'Toole. She is a light worker who had a profound near-death experience and came back with the gift of light language. She is here to share about her experience with us today. So welcome, Meaghan.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm
So
so
happy to be here.
excited. I'm so excited to have this conversation. We connected through TikTok, and I've been listening to all the little clips you've been sharing about your NDE and what you learned on your time over there on the other side. So I'd love to just kind of turn it over to you, have you pick up from wherever is relevant, and then we'll kind of meet up for questions. So take it
Of
away.
course. Of course, of course. Yes. When I was a kid, I started snowboarding very, very early. I was on skis at 3, and then I was really snowboarding by the time I was in 6th grade. And so when I was 14, me and my family went to this mountain, Beaver Creek in Colorado, and we were like, I was taking lessons and kind of doing like training because I thought I wanted to be like a professional snowboarder. I had like a team of like friends there who were snowboarding as well. And so we were up on the mountain, and we were on the mountain, and we were going, for skiers who are familiar with this terminology, I was going down a black diamond with moguls at the bottom. And then there was a blue runway that like intersected the part where it was like straight vertical. And then there was like moguls. So there was a blue runway that like intersected that. And I was by the trees, and I was doing like a powder run. So, which means, for those of you who aren't snowboarders, it means you're like going in between the trees and like really getting the powder, like the fresh snow that is set up from like a storm like the night before or something. Whew, I'm like kind of nervous telling this story because it's like I've never had anyone ask me about it before. So I was doing a powder run, coming down the Black Diamond, and then there was a skier that like didn't know what he was doing, and he like was zooming down the runway. And basically, as soon as I passed that runway, he hit me with like enough force to like he knocked me off my board, like my bindings broke. My head was like knocked into the mountain. Like I really took a tumble. So he hit me, and my head hit the mountain so hard, and I was like rolling down the mountain, and my heart stopped. So I was just laying there unconscious. And the second the guy hit me, I was like in this dark void where it was like nothing, and like no one was there, and I didn't have a body, and I was just kind of an ethereal form. I didn't have like a corporal form. And I was just sort of this like nothingness, this like air, this like ether. And then a bright white light was above me, and it sort of like came down and like enveloped me. And then I was like transmuted into this like basically just like this white ball of light, this like white energy. And it sort of spread out in this like blob, and it turned into a river, which I learned later was the Shinto river of souls, which is something in either Japanese or Korean culture, I think. And I was in a river. So suddenly I had a body, and I looked down, and I was in a river, and the river was just this like white glowing light, and it was me and all these other souls who had recently died, like moving up this river. And so we were in like a forest clearing. There were trees all around. It kind of looked like the Amazon rainforest. There were a lot of like Amazonian flora and fauna. Like there was like, I don't know if a toucan is a Amazon flora and fauna, but there were like birds, animals, all this stuff in this like forest clearing. And so we're moving up this river, and there's this huge bridge, like this like glamorous bridge that like was over the river. So we were moving towards that, and then we crossed over the bridge, and there was this big like stone tub where everyone was getting baptized in. It kind of looked like, it's difficult to explain, it looked like a starry night. Like the pool was like stone, and there were like, it was dark blue water, and there were like sparkles, like almost like the stars. And so everyone was like baptized in this stone tub. and then they were handed sacred items that were sacred in heaven. And for my experience, it was fruit. So they would hand you like an apple or an orange or a grapefruit or, a banana, something like that. Fruit was like very, very sacred there because it like came from the earth and it was like a gift from God and stuff like that, kind of reminiscent of like the tree of life, like, the apple that Eve ate or whatever. um, I'm getting chills telling this story. um, and so then after the baptism, you kind of like were in a queue, you were in a line to like the pearly gates. So there were these big iridescent gates. They were like shimmering. They kind of looked like, when you're at the beach and you like pick up like a shell and it's like iridescent and it like shimmers. So they kind of looked like that. They looked almost like they had like scales on them. And then everyone got in line to get into heaven. And then someone grabbed my shoulder and told me, it's not your time yet. And oh, by the way, before I forget, so there was a lot of religious figures there. There was like John the Baptist, like Saint Francis of Assisi, Saint Anthony, Saint Blaise, like the founder of the Baha'i faith, Joseph Smith, who is like Joseph Smith created Mormonism, so I don't know why he was there, but there was a lot of like religious figures, and they were sort of like helping this whole process along. They were kind of almost like spirit guides. Um, and then this man whose face I can't remember, grabbed my shoulder and he said, "It's not your time yet." And then I was immediately sucked up into this like vortex, which was like this like circular room. It was a circular room with like dark wood paneled like flooring and like golden lights and things like that. And it was like this like time vortex where I was like one with God, one with consciousness. I was like everything beautiful that had ever existed. Like I was like a tulip, a dewdrop, a bee, a blade of grass. I was just like one with like the earth, the stars, the heavens. Like I was just one with everything. And we were sort of vibrating inside like this like circle like area that looked like a hoop. Um, and I was there with him for a very long time. I was unconscious on Earth for only like I think it was like 2 or 3 minutes before. So funny, but the first person who saw the accident happen was a doctor. So that is like fortuitous as well. So he saw the accident happen and he went down and he was like, she like her heart is stopped, like she needs like CPR or whatever. So um he was doing that. And while that was happening, I was in this like vortex where I learned a bunch about like sacred ancient like teachings. Like I learned that like all religions are correct. I learned how to achieve enlightenment, how to speak God's language. And it was a very profound experience for me. And then, like I said on TikTok, I felt something wrap around my neck and like almost like a chain, like being yanked. And I like zoomed back into my body on Earth. And I woke up on the mountain after being resuscitated. And I was obviously like not right in the head because I had received a traumatic brain injury. But in the hospital, when they were like working on me and stuff, I was able to like tell the EMTs like what their names were, like who their families were, like something that I like could never have known. Because right before I got back into my body, I like hovered above my body for a second and I could like see down and I could sort of see their energy. And I was like, oh, that's Kevin and his wife is Molly. And like they have 2 daughters and stuff like that. So it was yeah, it was crazy. It was wild. So,
Thank you so much, Meaghan. I know there's a lot to share because if I remember correctly, on TikTok, you shared it felt like a million years on the other side. Is that right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. I actually interviewed another near-death experiencer, Dr. Linda Kramer. It's on my channel. She said that she was on the other side for what felt like 5 years, and she kinda calculated, like, all these memories and how long they would take in human years, and, it's super
Definitely.
fascinating. I think you would really resonate with her story. So, yeah, I'd love to dive deeper into any of these understandings or teachings that were revealed to you. We could take a million different directions, but like specifically with enlightenment, what did you learn about that and how can we achieve that here?
Of course, yeah. So basically one thing I learned is that there are 7 chakras throughout our body. So our sacral chakra, our place of passion and sex and energy, that's down near the base of our spine. And then we have our crown chakra, which is our third eye, with which we can experience enlightenment. And so I learned that in order to experience enlightenment, you kind of, there's a lot of literature out there on enlightenment and stuff like that. And it's really just pretty simple. You just have to use Kundalini energy. So essentially, that's like energy that lies coiled at the base of your spine, kind of like a snake. And you sort of have to like feel it like go up through the chakras, and you have to like feel this chakra and then feel this chakra and then feel like you kind of have to it uses emotions. So it's not thinking, it's not logic, it's not anything like that. It's what you feel. Like you have to like feel it.
Mhm.
So you have to be very, very in tune with your emotions. And you kind of have to move up through the chakras and kind of for a second live like in each chakra. Like you're meditating, right? So like your eyes are closed and you're meditating and you're in your sacral chakra and you're feeling, everything that has to do with that. Like you're thinking about like this is going to sound a little weird, but like your best like sexual experiences, your best, sports game, like something that requires like passion and energy and like
Mhm.
competition. So you sort of move through these like chakras, and then you get to the crown chakra, which is your third eye, and you kind of have to imagine a force like shooting out through your head, and it like basically the snake lies here and you go up and you just imagine the energy splitting and like going into like a circle
Mhm.
and then just kind of like spiraling like this like all the way to like the center, and then you have to like shoot through the center and like kind of like explode into communion with God. And you can tell you're doing this because you're just seeing yourself outside of your body, like you're meditating and your soul sort of like comes out of your body and faces you, and you can see yourself meditating. And then you move farther and farther away, and suddenly you can see where you're sitting and you can see the earth and you can see the galaxies, and you just kind of like go up like that. And there's this concept in Buddhist theology of the blue pearl, which is essentially when a monk has achieved enlightenment, they do an MRI and they see this like blue pearl of light, like right in the center of their brain. And maybe not center, but like in their brain. And I learned that that correlates with the amygdala.
Mhm.
And the amygdala is, I think, something that helps regulate emotions. I'm kind of not sure. It's been a long while since I've looked it up. But that bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and like severe mental illnesses kind of have neurological transmitters like in that pathway of the amygdala. And that's why sometimes people with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia experience hallucinations, delusions of grandeur. They spend a bunch of money, they're reckless, they become hypersexual, they do all of these things because they're sort of connecting to the spiritual side, but like not in a healthy way. Like they
Right.
obviously would have to like be on antipsychotics or like put in a mental institution or something like that in order to like bring them back down to earth. But I touched a bit upon how people with those disorders like are kind of like touched by fire, like they have a little bit of
Mhm.
genius like in their madness and stuff like that. So people who are like that are kind of closer to the other side like anyway, just because
Mhm.
that's like how their brain is like wired. um but yeah, in order to achieve enlightenment, you just have to get to like the blue pearl and like meditate enough where you're ascending into the heavens, like into this like circle where God like lives, and this like circular room. And once you're in there, you can spend as much time with him as possible. And most likely, like if you were to do an MRI, you would see the blue pearl in your brain. Did I explain that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I mean, I don't fully understand it, but yeah, you conveyed that perfectly. That's really interesting. And what you're saying about the Kundalini energy rising through the chakras and it relating to emotions, I really resonate with that because I had a Kundalini awakening through a powerful breathwork practice in
Mm-hmm.
which all of my suppressed emotions came to the surface. And it was just an amazing experience. And then after those emotions came up, it was like I was one with God for what felt like an eternity, but it was really profound. So that really lines up with the experience I had. So interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about something you shared on your TikTok channel about the seven heavens and tiers of gods and angels. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So I also learned that, you know, heaven exists and there are like seven dimensions to heaven. And basically like in each of the seven heavens, like take heaven one, for example, there's like tiers of gods. So there's like seven main ones, seven like the tiers like go down. I think it was like 77 tiers or something like that. The number seven was very important.
Mhm.
But it was gods from all different cultures. So I found that really interesting because when I was a kid, I was super into mythology, so I would like read about like the Greek and Roman gods, and I realized they're actually what people have thought of as like myth and legend. It was just energy. So they were tapping in to the energy of these gods who are living in heaven. So it was like I saw Aphrodite, Hermes, Dionysus, sort of like all the Greek and Roman gods. Polynesian gods, African gods. The African gods were like very, very important because Africa is like the cradle of civilization. Like all civilization like sprung from Africa. So in ancient Mesopotamian times, there was the Nile River, and there was ancient African tribal practices which involved like a lot of drums and like praying to gods like Oya and things like that. Um, so I learned that, and this was really interesting too. So um, basically in heaven, like anything exists, like you can like do whatever you want, like you like even like despite which dimension of heaven you're in, you can kind of just do what makes you happy and like do what makes you the most peaceful. And I discovered that God really loves Allah really loves creative energy and like creative gifts, and his people who he like just favors and like blesses, they're all blessed with like creative energy. So they're like musicians, poets, writers,
Mm.
artists, things like that, because people who are artists talk about going into the zone or like the
Mhm.
trance when you're doing a painting or you're writing a song or you're writing a poem, where you kind of feel God like come through
Mhm.
you, like you're like a vessel and a
Mhm.
channel for like these creative messages that he like wants out in the world. And like that's why we have such good movies and plays and books and paintings and things like that. So um there was a lot of stuff like that was like real. Let me see if I can describe this correctly. Like there was like a Mount Olympus because like someone had dreamed it.
Mm.
Let me see if I can explain this correctly. So it's like whatever you dream, because those dreams come from the consciousness that is God in heaven, like it can become reality. So
Mhm.
if you want to like be an anime character in like whatever, there's like a part of heaven where you can go do that, because it's like everything in heaven is about creativity and
Mhm.
like the blessing that it is. Am I explaining this correctly?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. From my perspective, at least, like my understanding, because we are an aspect or a fractal of God, the creator, we are creator beings. And I feel like that's part of our mission here on earth is to create in whatever way we feel drawn to, right? Whether that's art or music or writing or sharing your story, right? So I think that's what you're referring
He
to?
loved God, Allah loved and I call him Allah.
Okay.
So he revealed to himself to me as Allah, which is a Muslim name for God.
Mhm,
I asked him why. I was like, why do I have to call you Allah and not God? And he was like, because my name is different to you depending on who you are. So like a Native
okay.
American might say like Great Spirit, like a Christian might say God, a a witch might say source or consciousness. Like it's kind of like Shakespeare in that like, a rose by any other name would like smell as sweet. Like, his name is individual. So
Mhm,
you kind of call him what you feel, like what you feel in your heart that his name is.
mhm,
I say his because I was raised Catholic and it slips out, but God is actually a non-binary being because it's Mother Earth and Father Time, and it's like masculine and feminine energy. So it's a deity that is non-binary and is kind
mhm,
of in Sanskrit, they call him I am that, which I think is really, special because it's kind of like I am the creator of the heavens. I am everything that was or is or will be kind of thing.
mhm, mhm.
Um so I got off on a tangent. What were we talking about?
It's okay, we're just free flowing it. Just out of curiosity, you were 14 when this experience happened, right?
I was 14, yes.
How were you raised? Were you raised with a particular religion or spiritual perspective?
Yes, I was raised devout Catholic.
Okay. So I find it so fascinating because often in near-death experiences, people will tend to have an experience that they're either expecting, right? Or their belief systems will kind of bleed over and they'll experience heaven or God as shaped by their beliefs here on earth. But it sounds like for you, you have the gift of experiencing everything, all religions, all mythology, Native American beliefs, right? Is that
Yeah.
what it was for you?
Yes, so for me, I asked God what my religion is supposed to be, and he said, this religion called animism,
Okay.
which is this Native American belief that everything has a spirit. So geodes, rocks, they have
Mhm.
spirits, crystals, rivers have spirits, trees have spirits. There's a wind spirit, there's a sun spirit, there's a sky spirit, which I resonate heavily with Native American beliefs because I think that they are the most tuned in into what is real because they smoke tobacco to commune with the spirits and the
Mhm.
ancestors, and they have these ancient tribal practices where they do these dances and these war cries and these chants, and they're really tapping into the energy that is God. I mean, they know what's up. I mean, it's just, and it's so interesting because it's like, there's been so many genocides and like injustices against like Native Americans, but like they have the power. Like what they believe is like correct because there is a great spirit that is connected to the earth and the sky and that everything is connected like in one hoop, like one circle, and we're all every human soul is part of the same consciousness. So we're just souls having a human experience, and to really commune with the dead and commune with God and commune with um that thing that is enlightenment, you kind of have to commune with your environment. So you have to commune with the grass, the sky, people you love. It's like you kind of that was the belief system that God revealed to me. And it sounds kind of weird because it's like, oh, I was raised Catholic and now I
Mhm.
want to be a Native American. I'm like, but um they know what's up. So that was, very enlightening for me, because now when I'm in nature and when I'm in the ocean and when the sun is like shining down on me, I do feel communion with God, because I remember what he told me about animism and how um like everything is energy, because we're all atoms, we're all matter, and we're vibrating like this,
Mhm.
like at any given time. And so what the universe is, the crux of the universe, the what the circle of the universe is a vibration of energy. So in order to gain enlightenment, you have to raise your vibration, or you have to and you don't want to lower your vibration. But the point of meditation is to raise your vibration higher and higher and higher and higher, so you can commune with this like living, breathing sound that is the universe. And he also told me about Om, which is Om,
Mhm.
which is a sound, which is the sound of the universe and like the sound of all creation. So
Mm. That's so cool. Did you get to actually hear or feel the vibrations
yeah.
of Om?
So in the circular room, um, I heard the sound of the universe. I heard Om, and there was a lot of like fractals of things where I was seeing the seed of life. I was seeing the Fibonacci sequence, like a lot of sacred geometry was
Mhm.
happening there. And sacred on the walls were like ancient, like it was like light language, but light language speaking in tongues, but like markings, almost like
Mhm.
Chinese or Mandarin, or Japanese, where they have like characters like instead of
Mhm.
words. So yeah.
So interesting. If I remember correctly, you shared on TikTok an experience of getting to witness both heaven and hell. So, can you share your experience on what hell is and why do souls go there? Do they stay there? How does all that work?
Yeah, of course. So hell is just a place, a lower vibrational energy place, like basically people like who, excuse my language, but like, very fucked up, like drug addicts, cruel people, evil people, psychopaths, murderers, people who on earth are in such a low vibration that they can't be in communion with God, like terrorists, stuff like that. So they're vibrating on like the low vibrational like plane, and hell is kind of like, a rehab where like they like fix you up, like they like, you go through this like boot camp, and you like learn about the chakras and you learn about energy, and it's like um and God is so good, because the hell in the Bible like didn't exist. Like it wasn't a place of like eternal torment. There was no fire, there was no burning. It was just souls who were a little messed up, like getting the help they need to ascend to heaven and like live with God eternally. So it was, if anyone's an addict who's watching this, like it was like rehab. Like
Mhm.
your life is in shambles before you go to rehab, and then suddenly you're sober and you're rock climbing and you're living your life and you're so happy. So it's kind of like that. And also people, some super evil people get reincarnated onto Earth to like try again because of their karma to like reach nirvana. Um, I had a lot of questions on my TikTok about that. And also God like chooses souls to come to Earth, or souls like choose to come to Earth to kind of but those people who have already been in heaven, who get reincarnated, not because they're evil, but because they want to help the earth, those
Mhm.
tend to be kind of the people that are like light workers and spiritual people, and they want to raise the earth's vibration, because it's like you've been here before, but you need to like make the world a more enlightened and compassionate place, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. So, speaking of light workers and souls choosing to reincarnate to Earth to help raise the vibration, was there any information revealed to you about what's happening on Earth right now?
Yes. So basically, COVID was like a plague, essentially. It was like just something that there's this quote that God told me, and it's everything that happens to you is to raise like the evolution of your consciousness. So and he also said without suffering you can't have empathy, but basically COVID like needed to happen because it was this dark time of isolation and quarantine and people were dying, and it was an awful, awful time for humanity. I mean, really, there was so much isolation and there was so much mental health issues, and people committed suicide and people descended into alcoholism who had been sober for 20 years, and kids became socially inept because they couldn't socialize with their, it was horrible. But basically after every like dark age like comes an enlightenment, kind of like you know, I'm trying to think of an example. Not the roaring 20s because the depression happened, but basically like he basically told me that you know, right now we're in an age where COVID is over and it's become, you know, an endemic disease, so nobody has to really worry much about it anymore. Everyone's vaccinated. So now we're moving towards this area of a renaissance, like a renaissance of art, music, life, love. Like everything is about to get so much better because we just went through like a very dark period of history.
Mm. Okay, beautiful. And yeah, is there anything else that you learned on the other side that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, the only purpose of life is to love people, and that's the only reason we're here, is to practice love and empathy and compassion and relate to people suffering. And I don't want to get emotional, but there's so much pain on earth, you know, like there's bills to pay and rent and mortgage, and oh my God, I don't know what's happening with my kid, and you know, there's so much pain and so much suffering, and people turn to God for comfort. And um you know, it's all for a reason. Like it's all, I hate to sound cliche, but like everything happens for a reason, and it is all part of a plan, and there are no coincidences, and everything is connected in this he showed me this thing called the web,
Mm.
which is like kind of the web of like everyone's like actions. So imagine like it kind of looks like the seed of life, which I have on my
Mm-hmm.
arm as a tattoo. And basically it's like every single human being's like life is connected in this, and it changes based upon your decisions. Like, you know, maybe you're on this path and you're like, I think I'll go to Starbucks today. And then you change your mind and you're like, wait, no, Dunkin' Donuts. And that action affects everything because it's a butterfly effect. So we have all these like parallel lives that we could have lived, you know, had we made different choices. So like, let's say, you know what everybody says, like, you know, think about 9/11. I mean, some people's kids were crying and they were late to work on 9/11 and they didn't get killed. You know, that's a, in a parallel dimension, like they did get killed because they decided to ignore their child and go to work. So parallel universes exist, parallel um, and parallel lives exist, which I found really interesting because it's almost like every decision you ever make like affects your future.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's difficult when psychic mediums say things like, oh, I'm predicting that you meet this man and he will be your lover. That's just, psychic mediums who do that just aren't accurate because the future changes
Mm-hmm.
every second depending on your decisions. So like if a psychic does a reading for you and says you're going to meet a dark-haired man in a corduroy vest or whatever, if you know, go to a nature reserve instead of a bar, like that future might not be true for you anymore. So it's like I find it very irritating when psychic mediums say like I can predict your future, and you can only predict the future like right at that very moment, like
Right.
you're on the path you're on.
Yeah.
um
It's all
so
just a probability, right?
right, so like don't believe those people when they tell you they know things for sure, because nobody does, because you could change your mind like at any second. So
Yeah, so like the aspect of free will. So on that topic, were you shown there was any type of blueprint or plan for your life? And was this near-death experience pre-planned?
Yes, it was destined. My destiny is to become a spiritual healer and start a company. I'm not going to say the name in case someone watches this and steals it, but I'm supposed to start a company based on all spiritual teachings and kind of collect them into like a knowledge database so that like more people can be enlightened. And he also told me I was like a healer, so I have the ability to empathize with people and like heal their pain. So he said that the near death experience had to happen, and it was really rough. I mean, I woke up and I took like a year and a half to recover. I did like OT, I did PT, I was in doctor's offices. It was hell.
Mm,
And a lot of my life has been really, really difficult because of the accident. Like I have like neurological deficits because of it. Like I get like tremors, like my hands like shake, which
mm,
that sucks because I'm a painter and a fine artist, and like I'll be painting and my hand will be like shaking
mm,
like this, almost like I have like Parkinson's.
mhm.
Because you can't die and not have consequences of that.
Right.
So I do have some neurological deficits which have made my life hard, but I feel kind of like everything is coming full circle now because I finally shared my story on a platform and I really didn't think anyone would be interested in it.
Mm,
And I've received so much feedback, and I've had people like DMing me saying like, "Hey, can you do a reading with like my dead father?" Or, "Hey, can you tell me this?" And I do it for them, and they tell me that I've like healed them, and
mm,
I've, really made them feel so much better, and they can like move through their life with peace. So I finally feel and I pray to God all the time. I have the ability to be in direct communion with God just by like meditating. So
mm,
he tells me all the time that, my purpose is like greater than I could even imagine, and that I just need to stay strong and keep going. So
That's beautiful. I wish you all the best. I wanted to ask you, how was life? You were really young when this happened. How did this experience affect your life? Did you share it with friends and family? How did you integrate the experience?
I did not share the experience because it was so personal, but my behavior did change because I had like had this like enlightenment essentially. And my family didn't really like it. My family are devout Catholics, and they only believe devout Catholicism, and they don't really
Mhm,
believe that anything else could possibly be true. And I have conversations with them. I'm like, everything is true. Like the Native Americans were right, the
mhm,
Muslims were right, the Shintos were right, the Taoists were right, like Confucius was right. Like I met in the million years, I like met all of these figures, right? So like I met Confucius, I met Buddha, I met all of these things. So it's like I know that everything is correct, and it's part of like, a grand mystery that we're not supposed to like comprehend because, God is good and he makes no mistakes. But I tell my parents these things and they get very angry because they believe the Bible and they believe that there's like an eternal hell where you burn in fire, and they believe that, you shouldn't have sex before marriage, and that you like shouldn't you know basically be like a good little Catholic. And it's been really, really difficult, like kind of communicating that to them because they just don't believe me. They just don't believe
mhm.
me at all.
Yeah.
Um, and it's better when I'm living away from them. Like when I'm living on my own, uh life is a lot better because I can just be me and be my kooky hippie witch spiritual self and use my crystals, and I don't have to talk to them about anything. But
Mhm.
I'm visiting my family right now, and like when I'm home, when I talk about like crystals and stuff like that, they get like very like agitated.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Which I would think that this experience with you starting to share more on these platforms is even more fulfilling since you have like kind of that constriction going on with your family.
Yeah. Sorry, I spoke to back up. So
All good, all good. Yeah, so let's see. I had a few notes here.
yes.
I wanted to know if you found out the significance between the ones and the sevens. You said there were a lot of ones and sevens in heaven.
Yes. So those are just sacred numbers. I'm not sure if they're prime numbers, but basically I was shown the Fibonacci sequence and equals MC squared. And I was shown a bunch of equations to like quantum physics. Um, and quantum physics and chaos theory and string theory are like um physicist theories of the universe, and
Mhm.
how to determine um what is really out there, if God is real, if things are possible, blah blah blah. And I was told that the numbers, the letters and numbers X, 1 and 7 are very important to quantum mechanics. So
Mm, so interesting. And you also came back with the gift of light language. So if yeah,
Mhm.
so if you could first share with the viewers, for those who don't know, what is your definition of light language?
It's the language of heaven.
Okay, great. And so if I understand correctly, you did not have that gift before your near-death experience. You learned it in heaven, and then you came back with the ability to speak it?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, great. Is there anything you feel inspired to share today?
Yeah, so language changes the way you think. So like the French, like je t'aime, Spanish, que pasa, whatever language you're speaking determines the way you think. So if you can speak light language and tongues and the language of heaven, you can commune with God, and you're able to see him and speak to him, and have messages come through and like become psychic and all of that, because um it's almost like you're speaking his language, so you can see him. And for me, that was like very profound, because in the Bible there's like the Tower of Babel, and God, there's this legend that like God split everybody into different languages so they can't understand each other, so there would be discord and conflict and war.
Mhm,
And that is accurate, because if everyone were able to speak the language of heaven, there would be like world peace, because everyone would be able to like understand each other.
mhm,
um, and the way you speak it is that you feel it. So you don't think it, it's very hard to describe.
mhm.
You imagine your heart as like this like pulsing ball of energy, and like if you want to talk to God, like imagine that language like flowing through your heart, like up to him. That's
Mm.
the best way I can describe it.
How cool. So interesting, so fascinating. So, are there any final messages you would love to share with the viewers about either your experience or just any offerings, uplifting positive message?
Yes. So life is really difficult. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of addiction. Um, and you can get yourself into really bad situations. You can become an alcoholic, you can lose all your money gambling, you could go through a divorce and have your wife take the kids. There are so many scenarios in life where you just feel crushed and broken, and despair really is, there's a lot of despair on earth. And I just want to say that anything can change at any moment. And you know if you're not happy with the life you're leading, I would encourage you to find the courage to start all over again, because every day is a new day with God. Every day is a new day, and you have to carpe diem, and you have to seize the day, and you have to live life to the fullest, because we're not going to be here forever. And there's so much joy and beauty and peace to be found in certain things. There's peace in walking your dog in a park. There's peace in having a drink at the bar with your friends. There's peace in smoking a cigarette. There's peace in, I would just encourage them to find their peace because it does exist on Earth. And Earth is just kind of like a playground, and it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be this like slog through, it's not supposed to be Sisyphus carrying the boulder up the hill. It's not supposed to be a slog. You're supposed to find, joy and peace. And
Mhm.
if you're not feeling that way, I promise you it's there. I promise you it's there.
Thank you so much for that message. And I will link your TikTok channel below in the description box. Are you currently offering professional services?
Yes, I am. I am offering light language healing sessions. So if you would like to be healed by me, please DM me on TikTok. I am only charging $17 because that is my lucky number.
Okay,
So
cool.
I know I probably should be charging more, but I'm very like woo woo, like I am into all the superstitions, and 17 is my lucky number. So I am charging $17. So if you would like to get a reading for 20 bucks, call me.
All right. Sounds great. Well, I loved this conversation. I wish you all the best on your new ventures with your spiritual business. And I know we'll keep in touch.
We absolutely will keep in touch. Please feel free to reach out on TikTok and, give me your phone number or whatever, and we can chat. But I'm curious to see where your journey goes as well. You're, very intuitive, and you're a healer and an empath as well. So I'm sure you're constantly looking for ways to fulfill your purpose as well. So I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you so much, Megan.